So grateful to be here and very happy to discuss these incredibly important and hard to talk about topics. He has an incredible backbone and staggering moral fiber. Howie is totally committed, completely ethical, totally admirable. No pressure if you can hear this, but honestly, Howie's a hero to me.
John, you joined us before, and it was pretty incredible kind of testimony you gave, and you just devoted your life to advocacy for child trafficking, and even 9/11 truth. Maybe you could explain to us, in the last decade, what do you think the most challenging parts of coming alive on some of these issues have been?
Probably the hardest thing, and it continues, is just realizing that pretty much everything that I was told and taught since I was in grade school is probably not true.
And hello and good evening to the Traffic Report. It's 12:02 in the Eastern Time Zone, all the way from the moonlit mountains of Appalachia to the city of brotherly love. And unfortunately, there'll be no music tonight because YouTube blows. How are you, Howie?
Well, we're going to be talking about enough music, so maybe we don't need it.
We have a show about the music industry. I was going to lead.
Well, it's as we keep talking, it's going to be. Yeah, it's going to be a lot more than it seems like. It's going to be a lot more than one show because I don't know how, maybe we just we got fixated on certain things and then Hollywood and was like, it seems as though like the music industry has just been sitting out there for lots of lots of concrete stuff. Unfortunately,
an uneasy silence.
I thought you were going to say an uneasy feeling. I thought it was going to be a play on the Eagles song, easy, peaceful, uneasy feeling, queasy feeling.
Maybe earlier in the day I might have thought of that. But,
Yeah, I mean, just to preface a little bit. I mean, some of the stuff that we'll be talking about tonight. I mean, it's out there in the open, but for some reason, it seems to be very accepted amongst rock and like it's. Well, if you're in rock and roll, then I guess it's okay to date 14-year-old girls. Is that?
Yeah, or like Ted in his song 13.
Yeah, whatever.
I wonder if he put 13 in there because he thought 12 was just too far to go.
Yeah, I'm sure he didn't. I'm sure he didn't discriminate, but
that's my just. I've been pissed about that all day, and I really never liked Ted Nugent, but as a kid, heard some of that music and that song and paid it no mind,
none whatsoever.
Had no idea, and you brought that out the other day, I believe, and I went and looked at. I got those lyrics, and dude, I mean, that's that's why this whole thing has been underground for as long as it has and just hiding in plain sight and nobody said jack shit about it. Really, the song can be out there. Oh, and probably protected on YouTube. If we played that song on YouTube, they'd take our video down, but they wouldn't take it down because it's talking about pedophilia in the lyrics. Really?
But there's
and I got that motherfucker, that plays this role as a patriot, as a protector.
I've seen it hunting and living off the land, and he's this and that. But listen, we don't want to be. It's not going to be all about Ted Nugent, but the guy's. he just. I mean, I never liked his music. I never cared about him. I mean, he was, you know his name. I didn't even know, like I knew one song, Cat Scratch Fever, and, then disappeared for a long time and then came out and he was like hunting and, talking about.
Which incidentally sounds like a rape in progress, Cat Scratch Fever. And I'm going through all his lyrics now because I've got a hard on, I guess, for this guy. And I'm gonna go through all his lyrics, and I tweeted at him today. I said, if anybody has a problem, with him talking about a clean 13-year-old having sex with, if anybody has a problem with that, tune in, and I hope people are in here. And let me just do some quick shout outs because this is blowing up, and there's just so much going on. Marshall, for one, who is in contact with the show now, and I won't, really go into too much detail. And Neely is another, and Judy Conway, Adrian's grandma, has been in touch with the show, since day one, just about. And we're going to have Judy on at some point. But what we were talking about too, with all this, bringing down these pedophile networks. At the same time, they need all these people that are contacting us are their children have been taken from them. Some of them have been put in jail on false charges, and the children have been placed with known pedophiles. Okay, and that is something we're going to be having shows about, and we're going to be talking a hell of a lot more about. And that needs to be right up there with, whatever they're doing with these indictments and the pedophile networks, because, I consider DCF as a network and
right.
So just those shout outs to those people. And thank you so much to all of them for the help they've tried to give the show after what they've been through. A lot of them really aren't on. I don't think they're in a position right now, to come on a show and talk about some of this stuff, because they've already been unjustly accused and some of them even convicted of false charges after DCF in one state telling them, yes, your kid's being abused, and then giving that same child back to the abuser, and then the mother goes to try to protect this kid, and they're put in jail for years. So this is just I'm so fucking angry. I can't
these
even.
These stories. I mean, these stories are all over the place, and I became aware of it, through the Grace Packer case, because she was very involved in Pennsylvania. It's either it's called DHS, I believe, Department of Human Services. And there were so many instances where Grace, her situation could have been, should have been obviously recognized that she was in danger over and over again. Nobody did anything. And then it was like, once again, dropped the ball, fell through the cracks, whatever the case may be. But I'm like, no, with her situation, it's way too many cracks. There's way too many balls dropped. It has to be intentional. So, I think, we were just talking about it, you do your shout outs, we have to start putting pressure on these agencies, whether they're governmental agencies or subcontracted private agencies, and let them know that we are watching them, because they are, you said it, it's a ring. They are facilitating the trafficking. They are just committing crime after crime after crime. And it's not everybody, because you have these good social workers that I believe will go into the system, and let me tell you something, they don't, from my understanding, they don't stay. They'll weed them out real quick, and they'll get frustrated, and nothing makes sense, and they'll be overworked and all this other stuff. So there is more than enough evidence that something is rotten with DHS, DFS, whatever you want to call it.
DFS, you know what They're known by a lot of different letters, but it's the same.
Yes, and my goal, right? And my goal, and even in the same, even from county to county, they could be called something different. My goal would be have a national, 3-letter system that it doesn't change. Because what I found was when you're trying to look up certain agencies to make phone calls, it takes a while to even figure out who they are, because they're all called something different. And they don't even have their own website. They're part of governmental websites. I mean, it's a very complicated thing that, I don't want to, delve too deep into tonight. But it's probably something that needs, when you brought it up, it needs, our immediate attention. And we really need to support these people that are getting just abused, the parents and the children both being just.
Yeah, they're not satisfied with turning the kids over to known pedophiles. They put the good parent behind bars for following the advice of DCF. This is Neely's case, and she's going to be on. These people are going to be on talking about this, and we will not leave this alone until it's.
But
right.
This is something where, for my own bag of tricks, like taking a sign and standing out in front of some of these places just to let them know that, hey, you're being watched too. Like we know, because once you start putting them, once you put them on alert, then maybe, not to say we're letting them off the hook, but at least hopefully, help some children in the immediate, because if I knew of something and it was close, I would absolutely do that. I'm sorry, I might be I have a little bit of a cold, so I might be coughing a little bit tonight.
No, it's okay. But and just thank you to everybody that we're between the two accounts, we're up to about 2,000 followers on Twitter, and everybody is participating, and the information that comes our way, and not only the survivors, but the victims, the parental victims of DCF, and it's just thank you to everybody, and there's just too many people to name. We tweet, who you are, and just thank you, because all that information it's making a difference. Networks are forming, survivors are coming forward. There's just really good stuff happening, and that's the only thing that kind of tempers my anger about, Ted Nugent a little bit, but not much. But yeah, so and the music industry, it's going to break wide open, and we were called prescient today. Because we're developing inside information. We're getting intelligence sources that know, that are inside some of these, whether it's Hollywood, whether it's the military, whether it's Congress. We're getting information, and one of those sources, and I won't say who it is because there's a big bomb about to drop, a Hollywood bomb. I'll just say that much. But we were called prescient, and I had to find a dictionary to find out what that meant. But I was very flattered. And
you and me both.
Yeah. So we're just going to keep doing what we're doing, and we're seeing, it's just traction everywhere you look. There's traction, and that's a great feeling. And tonight,
we're on the my big word. We're on the precipice of something happening. Obviously, it's happening with the sexual harassment, but that's just the primer. The sexual harassment of women, obviously we know that's been going on, and I believe that's mainstream media, deep state, who, the powers that be, whatever you want to call, they realize they can't control those floodgates. Those floodgates have opened. So my theory is that the strategy is to flood it. Charlie Rose, you're done. Al Franken, you're done. John Conyers, you're done. You're done. Oh yeah, we disavow. And keep keep the spotlight on that because once again, the general public will be unhappy. They'll be upset. They'll be,
Or like George W. Bush said, if they find out what we're doing, they'll hang us from the nearest lamppost.
Right. Right. But they're, groping, it's been going. What the public cannot stand is what's happening to children. And that is what they, they'll okay, fine. We'll give you, it's, I'm almost to the point that this is kind of like the distraction, keep the eye on the sexual harassment of women, even the rape of women. Yeah. But we're not going to let up.
I agree. I think there's, they want to just get everything but the pedophilia out there. Right. They have no problem, and believe me, when Judy Spear, who works in the oversight office that oversees Congress, she was also on the plane with Leo Ryan in Jonestown and got shot in Guyana when they were trying to uncover that CIA operation. But she's been yelling about this slush fund that the Congress has had to pay off these victims of sexual assault. And it's not, 90% of these, it's not harassment, it's sexual assault. When you put your hand on another human being in that manner, and Charlie, if you're listening, that Disney asshole who was just went on an extended leave of absence.
Yeah. Disney, Pixar.
Toy Story. The director of Toy Story. His name, his scummy name.
Putting out these carefully crafted apologies, sort of apologies that are written up by, a couple $1,000 an hour lawyers. Come on, dude.
Stop apologizing because fuck your apology.
If I did anything in any way I've never intended, this has been for hard on my family. Shut the fuck up. Okay.
And the way that the way I read that one today from the Disney guy, and God, let me see if I can find it because it was just so objectionable. I mean, it was he's admitting to maybe bumping up against somebody like that or other things, and Reuters actually reported it, and that was their wording that he apologizes for, I think it was
John Lasseter. His name is
Lasseter, but other things. That's a hell of a story, Reuters. Thank you so much for clarifying that it was rubbing up against somebody or other things that might have been taken the wrong way. It's called sexual assault.
Yeah,
sexual battery.
So
thank you, Reuters.
But I mean. When it comes down, these guys all have a certain look about them. We're gonna get into more. Listen, I've talked about it before. The pedo smile. We've talked about this before. Like there is something about certain people, like they have a creepy look about them. I'm starting to think that there's,
mishaps. He called them mishaps.
Mishaps.
Yeah. Yeah,
are they unfortunate mishaps?
Here it is. Oh, here it is. Okay. Here it is. I got it because I got to read this. And
usually, it's an unfortunate mishap. Or
okay. God. In a memo, this is to his staff. I deeply apologize if I've let you down. Especially, I want to apologize to anyone who's ever been on the receiving end of an unwanted hug. A hug? Yeah, right, buddy. Or any other gesture they felt crossed the line in any way, shape, or form. Yeah, I'd like to know what would that other gesture be?
Well, looking at this guy, I mean, any hug from this guy would be unwanted.
Yeah. Another fucking creep, you know, and making kids movies, no less.
And yeah. I'm sure there's, you know, they've, you know, we're gonna get way off. We're gonna get way off topic.
We keep bouncing out of the music.
It's not our fault. I mean, like, listen. I mean, like information is this, like, I mean, every day. I mean, like, Charlie Rose is no more. Like, Charlie friggin' Rose is gone. You know, like.
Same lame ass apology though. I tweeted at him today. I said, "Hey Charlie, guess what? You can't apologize for sexual assault." But
he admitted. Yeah, but he sort of admitted it. He didn't deny it.
Yeah, but then he apologizes. It's like, are you kidding? Go turn yourself in.
Yeah.
Okay, Howie.
Yeah, sorry. Sorry, I sexually assaulted you.
Yeah, sorry, but and I've used this before. I was in the line at the grocery store and I grabbed some woman's rear end.
John.
Would
John, I have to interrupt you. I just have to interrupt you. Who was I talking about about groupies and music and young girls? Who was I talking about before the show?
Ted?
No, hypothetical. It was a hypothetical.
Oh God.
David. It just popped into my head. David Cassidy.
David Cassidy. Right.
David Cassidy has died.
Yeah.
I did not even know that when I had said that.
Yeah. Oh. I was gonna tell you don't speak ill of the dead, but you know, that's what he's doing or did. You know, who knows?
Oh no! I was I had no idea. You knew that he died?
Yeah. I've been following that.
Oh my God! I did not even know. Okay, that's why my mind was a little. Okay, yeah. All right. That's just a strange coincidence.
Yeah, it's a shame he spent all that time denying that he was drinking on Dr. Phil, you know, and just not. And addiction's a terrible disease, you know. If he'd have put that time into, you know, possibly getting some treatment, he would probably be still around.
Well, for the listeners, when John and I were talking earlier, I was just saying about, you know, those who wouldn't remember. I mean, he was on the Partridge Family, but he did have like a music career, and they did send him around on tours, and I mean, he was literally surrounded by, you know, and probably 14-year-old girls would probably be on the high end. I mean, you know, there were girls like under 10 that were just, you know, screaming and stuff like that. And I just said, you know, and I'm not accusing David Cassidy of anything. I'm just saying that, like, you know, the groupie thing, like, you know, he would have these, you know, if he were to be into something like that, I mean, you would have, like thousands of, you know, prepubescent girls, you know, surrounding you. It's just, you know, where are the parents in all this? Like, you know, I understand, like, you know, having idols and, you know, nowadays with the boy bands and, you know,
and you know what, Howie, and we keep, you know, going back into Hollywood. That's because the music industry and Hollywood are like hand in hand.
Yes, yes, right.
It's not us.
Right, but Hollywood's more of like a thing, you know, like the music industry. You know, it's not, you know, located in one place. So, you know, but you know, musicians and, you know, obviously underage girls. I mean, they go hand in hand. And but, you know, with the things that have been out there for, you know, the actual relationships. Obviously, you know, going back to Elvis Presley. You know, we could start right there. I mean, like, I don't want to go back to, like, you know, Big Bandier or Beethoven or whatever, but you know,
we'll give Beethoven a pass. All right.
Yeah. I don't know what Beethoven was into it, but that'll be next week. But you know, like, I mean, Elvis Presley, at, you know, in his 20s, I mean, courts a 13-year-old Priscilla. I don't even know how they found this girl, and you know, waits until, you know, she's 8, you know, dates her for 5 years. I mean, at the height of his popularity, I mean, like Elvis Presley is not having sex for 5 years.
Yeah. And I think she was. that he got permission from her family to spend the night and stuff like that. It's like, what? You know what was going on, and you were talking. Right. We were talking about Jerry Lee Lewis, and what they were upset. They weren't upset that she was 12 or 13. They were upset that she was a second cousin or a first cousin. Right. It's like, really?
With her first cousin. But it was just kind of, now, when you go back to the 50s, it was a little more, accepted. 16-year-old girls got married and things like that. But like Elvis was at least in his early 20s when he was dating her.
That would be in Tennessee. The aggravating factor in statutory rape would be the age difference.
But that's what we're talking about here. That people weren't like, well, gee, that's creepy. People celebrated it.
Yeah. Well, look at that. Look at Nugent's song. I mean, somebody must have knew those lyrics. Nobody said jack shit about that. Well,
let's not compare Ted Nugent to Elvis Presley.
No. But it's for 4 decades. People don't even read the lyrics and say, they've got parental advisories on the rap stuff, and some of that, believe me, needs them. But it's like 4 decades. I felt just like a fucking idiot when I read those lyrics. It was like, my God,
All right, so Elvis is about 10 years older than Priscilla. I don't know. I didn't get the months down, but he was born in 35. She was born in 45. So he would have been 23 years old when he started dating a 13-year-old Priscilla. Yeah. And nobody, and even to this day, nobody,
And I'll just tell you, maybe somebody's interested in this, maybe they're not, because I've done the research, because I'm dealing with another piece of shit that I had to do this research about. But in the state of Tennessee, that would have turned a Class D felony, statutory rape, into a Class C felony, 10 years or older. So, yeah, that's pretty significant.
Right. So, it always struck me that both Jerry Lee and Elvis both came from Sun Records, and Jerry Lewis. I mean, he was just an amazing musician, but I mean, it was poorly acted by Dennis Quaid. The movie Great Balls of Fire. I thought it was poorly acted, but Jerry Lee Lewis, he wanted to marry his cousin, and and there was no stopping him.
Yeah.
And she was, I would have to get the age. I mean, she was young. I mean, she was probably 15. I mean, I would have to get all the things. But the impression that I got was that it wasn't the fact that he was marrying someone young. It was the fact that he was marrying his cousin, and that's what sort of destroyed his career. And and he was, he was willing to give up his career. He still had a career, but he would have gone down as, he would have been right up there with Elvis. And so that was that's the first inklings. And obviously if they were doing it, other people were doing it also. It wasn't like. But then we get into the 60s and 70s. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Here we go.
Yeah, and I put some specific pictures up, for our promo, and one was John Phillips and Mackenzie Phillips, a disgusting story of incest and basically child rape, and we have also Ted, of course. And Don Henley, and I'm trying to see who the last picture was that was in our Hall of Shame. And you want to talk about some of those guys? And I'm going to talk about the boy bands too, because we didn't get we didn't get that far, and there's things in the rap industry. This all kind of started. Oh, Gary Glitter. Oh, how could I forget about Gary Glitter?
Yeah, Gary Glitter. And But I guess the thing that sort of sparked the conversation about rock and roll, Tim McElharney, Sharp Edge 42 on Twitter, it came out that back in it was either late 70s or early 80s, when the Eagles were breaking up, Don Henley was throwing a party in which and they called a service and got some prostitutes there, and one of the prostitutes ended up dead of an overdose. She happened to be 16 years old, and he was, I forget what he was arrested for.
Contributing to the delinquency of a
minor. Yeah, and he claimed he didn't know how old she was, and it was in his house, but the roadies gave her the drugs and all this stuff. But it was the roadies. Right, but all I'm saying is that if a 16-year-old girl shows up at your house, you kind of know that. I mean, you might want to ask some questions, but the whole thing seems a little strange. But the bottom line is, like, she did wind up dead, and then obviously
in my mind that's on Don. That's his house. That's on him.
Absolutely. But he gets off with contribute, pays a fine and he's done. But there's but it's the whole, like, Laurel Canyon music scene.
Yeah, I wanted you to talk about that a little bit, because that's
right. I know about it, and obviously so much great music came out of that era, and one of the first huge bands were the Mamas and the Papas, and the Mamas and the Papas were just massive. Mama Cass and John Phillips and what's the other, his wife or whatever her name was, and
Michelle and Denny McClain.
Yeah, Michelle. Yeah, and Denny. But and John Phillips ends up in an 10-year incestuous relationship with Mackenzie Phillips, who had all kinds of problems. So
I'm sorry, I was reading that today, but you don't just don't decide when your daughter turns 18 that you're going to do this. I mean,
right. Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. So she may have left some of those other.
And she's changed, her view, and she's now sober, and she's a substance abuse counselor. But she said for years she insisted that it was consensual, like that, and what she said, more recently was, regardless of if she was 17, 18, you can't consent in that relationship. There's just
right.
Yeah, there's no way to consent.
But it was the point of, because I've seen interviews. I'm a huge Jackson excuse me. I'm a huge Jackson Brown fan, and he was around there, and Joni Mitchell and Crosby, Stills and Nash, and and the Eagles were around, and it was just so much music, but it was such a tight knit community. Now, if John Phillips was was this type of person, like, I'm just saying that everyone would have had, it seems to me that everyone would have had to have known about it, and it just gets into that, that all too
don't ask, don't tell.
All too familiar theme that it's just the way it is, and in rock, in rock and roll. And I'm just, and just started, things just started popping in my head. Like, man, there just had to be, like, just 14, 15, year old girls just hanging around everywhere,
Absolutely. So. Absolutely. Without a doubt. And hopefully, like Hollywood is unraveling, the music business will start to unravel. And,
right. And
it needs to, and we have concrete stuff, not just conjecture, about that. With there's a great document. Well, it's not a great documentary because NBC left out kind of an important part on the Menendez story. They just did a documentary on that, and they forgot to mention that he was head of RCA Records, and during that time, RCA Records was and please watch the documentary. You can find it, I'm sure, somewhere. But they just ran it, and both of those Menendez kids, I mean, they shot those people. There was rage involved. It was like 10 times with a shotgun. I mean, obviously, it wasn't about money, you know. And they brought that up through the trial, and that they were sexually abused, both of them, by this guy who was head of RCA Records or high up in RCA Records, and then, you know, high up in the music industry. And he was working with a guy by the name of Lou Pearlman, and just Google that name, and you'll see this slob who, the good part of this story is that he died in prison. He was 62, undisclosed causes. Hopefully he got broomstick like Jeffrey Dahmer, but we'll never know. But he's dead, but he went to prison. And these guys, Menendez, him, and a bunch of others, brought Ricky Martin up. There was some, Ricky Martin disclosed some of this, and then that was all covered up. But the Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, all those New Kids on the Block, and this guy went to prison, old Lou Pearlman. But yeah, NBC conveniently doesn't mention that RCA, who I think was their parent company at one time, this Menendez guy was high up in their administration. So, but yeah, read a little bit about Lou Pearlman, because he was, let's see, in 2008 sentenced to 25 years in prison without the possibility of release until 2029. And let's see. Yeah, he fled the country too. And I'm trying to think. Okay. And yeah, but you know, Lou, he didn't go to jail for the pedophilia. He went for fraud.
Right. There were allegations against him. John, let's walk it back a little bit, because we'll get to. I mean, I think there can be like an entire like boy band, and you know, there's this whole, you know, and the psychology of it, and you know, obviously these bands, you know, put 5, you know, good-looking, you know, they call them boys, and you know, before too long they're well in their 20s, but you know, they're not, you know, call them boy bands. But you know, there's a lot of rock and rollers. You know, I just, in the 1970s, man, like we're talking guys like Jimmy Page, David Bowie, Steven Tyler,
Gary Glitter.
Right, but I'm talking about Steven Tyler, the lead singer of Aerosmith. You know, impregnates a 16-year-old girl. You know, David Bowie and Jimmy Page, both, you know, having sex with the same 14-year-old girl. Bill Wyman of the Rolling Stones. I mean, he was in his 40s, I believe, when he started dating a 13-year-old. Like, what, you know, like we're not talking like fringe dudes. We're talking about Rolling Stones, Aerosmith, David Bowie, Led Zeppelin. Yeah. You know, all have connections to young teens, and and all this is like documented. Like, how have we, you know, it's almost like that thing, well, they're rock and roll stars, so they get, like, the rules don't apply to them, you know, and it sort of seems like in Hollywood, yeah, you know, the same type of thing.
Absolutely.
And because you played, yeah.
There is a separation, but all those bands ended up in L.A., you know, and that whole, you know, cesspool, you know.
You know, not
that they weren't doing it, you know, wherever else they are. And Jimmy Page was, you know, a fan of Aleister Crowley, you know, the satanic pedophile. So, you know.
Yeah, real quickly, when I went up to demonstrate at the first Hillary book signing, there were some people that showed up there, and I met this one woman, and I met her at a second one. And, I have like occasional contact with her. She was like a model, like in the 70s, and she was like hanging around like Studio 54. Like she knew like lots of people. I think she said she dated Iggy Pop. I would have to call her and confirm. I was like, really? Oh wow, you're like half famous or something. Who also, I think there were some allegations against Iggy Pop also. But, I really wanted to, she's into a different, she's not so much into the, the pedogate stuff. Not she doesn't believe, but I really wanted to pick her brain, like, what was going on there, because I'm starting to, I just have a lot of, I'm sure not everybody in there was 18 years old, and Mick Jagger, he always dated very, women, like 50 years younger than him, as soon as he was, old enough.
I think he finally married one that was like 40 or 50 years younger than that. I think his last wife was. Yeah. Well, younger.
So, but we're when you're talking about these huge names, you railed on Ted Nugent for a while. Why don't you tell, for people that didn't see the tweet or whatever, and why don't you talk about the song,
Oh my God.
And I just just came across, there are articles, lots of articles have been written on this stuff. Like I didn't have to do much digging to find, like, whoa, Jimmy Page was dating a 14-year-old, Stephen, like it's all right out there, like, so. But the Ted Nugent stuff was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, let me, because it's so vile. I don't want to paraphrase it. I'm just looking for
I have it if you need it.
The actual verse.
Right, but the song is called Jailbeat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's old Ted, that greasy pervert that he is. Let's see. I'm trying to get the exact wording here. Oh, there it is. Okay. Quote. Well, I don't care if you're just 13. You look too good to be true. I just know that you're probably clean. And one little thing I got to do to you. I mean, if you gave that to a forensic psychologist or a psychiatrist that identified pedophiles, I think every alarm bell would go off just with that verse. So
yeah.
Ted,
yeah. Well, I want to throw in. Yeah, I want to throw in the next verse because it gets even more sadistic. It's quite all right. I asked your mama. Wait a minute, officer. Don't put those handcuffs on me. Put them on her, and I'll share her with you.
See, I never got that far. So
it's quite all right. I asked your mama. Wait a minute, officer. Don't put those handcuffs on me. Put them on her, and I'll share her with you. What? Yeah. I mean, like, can you imagine? I'm looking at these lyrics. I'm like, this can't even be real.
Yeah, yeah. And this asshole is allowed to walk around and pretend like he's some sort of stand-up patriot, for the Second Amendment and the Constitution, and I'm sure those lyrics just came out of Ted's head. They were just made
right.
up.
It's right. Because you're just like, gee, I need a song. Let's call it. Yeah. Let's see what I'm gonna.
Yeah, let's talk about raping a 13-year-old and sharing her with a police officer, because apparently he knew it was against the law. Jesus.
Well, in 1978, when he was 30 years old, he ended up. He wanted to marry his 17-year-old girlfriend. So he was 30 and she was 17, but because it wasn't legal, he got permission from her parents to become her legal guardian.
Wow.
That's how yeah.
Yeah, and he's whining on the internet about, I think Stephen Crosby called him a pedophile. and the best one was a self-defecator. That was brilliant. But
Stephen Crosby did?
Yeah.
Okay.
And Ted was whining about that. Well, guess what, Ted? You are a fucking pedophile. How? Okay.
Mm. They stayed together. They stayed together for 9 years, and Nugent would say at the time he was addicted to girls. Doesn't say what age girls, but
yeah. Well,
I mean, it's just
maybe. I think his song pretty much says that. What age?
Right.
You know.
Yeah. So I mean, it's like, he's had plenty of chance to do interviews, and even on Fox and stuff, talking about his, whatever his, I don't know what his quote unquote agenda is, or but I know he was big on, he was like the celebrity hunter, and talk about like living in the wild and shooting and your own food and everything like that. It's obviously not my thing, and I'm not taking a stance on that. But it's like, when you had, like if you have this guy in front of you, it's like Ted, can we talk about your 1981 song? I mean, you married, you were so desperate to marry this 17-year-old, and once again, he's 30. It wasn't like he was 19. He was 30. Like, what exactly at 30 do you, she hasn't even had a chance. She hasn't even like started her adult life yet. And at 30, you've already like lived, especially as a rock and roller, But I mean, oh my God, it's just mind boggling. It's just absolutely mind boggling.
Well, I'll be doing some more investigation on Mr. Nugent. Believe me.
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot more, because it's like sitting out there. It's just sitting out there.
Yeah.
And
this is a real good time to be tweeting out Ted's lyrics all over Twitter and
absolutely
putting them out on. This is a great time for that.
I don't know if he's still active, being vocal in his first causes, or.
Oh yeah. He's and I'm sure Trump would rather not, but he's a big Trump supporter. This fucking piece of shit. But he better hope that that could be famous last words for him if he's still involved in anything like this. So yeah. Oh, and another thing, another quick shout out to your friend did some excellent work, which needs to be followed up on too, and that it's a little bit of a digression, but Tim McInerney, I believe, put out a great thread on Franklin again and found Larry King, that piece of shit who was pretty much one of the principals of the Franklin cover-up and all the child rape and pedophilia and
wasn't he? Well, I heard about it a couple months ago that he was teaching. He was teaching vocal. It was like a chorus leader or something, or choir leader.
Yeah, working with kids again.
Yeah. That's actually been out there for a little. That's been out there for a little bit.
Well, Tim had his picture up, and that is definitely the guy. And that's another one I'm going to be really following up on.
Is that in D.C.?
It's in Virginia, I believe.
All right.
Hopefully, he's one of the sealed indictments. But
all right, maybe we got. All right. Well, D.C.'s not. Virginia's not too far from D.C. I happen to know a very loud mouth in Virginia, so I'm gonna have to make a phone call.
Other than me,
Neil Wolf, hint.
Oh, another Virginia guy. Oh, cool. Yeah, we should go visit Larry.
Right. I want to touch on this. I want to touch on this Bill Wyman thing because once again, you think of the Rolling Stones, and the last thing you think about is pedophilia or anything like that. And Bill Wyman was the bass player for the Rolling Stones from till 1993. It's for over 30 years. Well, in 1989. At age 52, Wyman married 18-year-old Mandy Smith, whom he had been dating since she was 13 and he was 47. According to Smith, the relationship was sexually consummated when she was 14 years old. The relationship was a subject of considerable media attention. The marriage ended in spring of 1991. Oh, it didn't last. It's very odd. Although the divorce was not finalized until 93. What kind of psychopath at 47 years old goes after a 13-year-old?
Yeah, and no big deal. Yeah.
And where are her parents? What is going on? What is going on? As
Becky has shown us, England is a cesspool of this, and for that to be true, and it is. I mean, that's a fact. You just read factual information. How fucked up is that society? And the last guy we'll get into a little bit. We'll be covering these scumbags again, but Glitter, who thankfully got 16 years in 2015 for abusing 3 young girls between 1975 and 1980. But
they were not even teenagers.
Yeah, under 13.
Right, and in his lifetime. And in his lifetime, it was only 3. I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Paul Gadd is his name.
Yeah. What are the statistics? Like every pedophile will, potentially abuse, up to 100, have 100 victims, something to that effect.
Yeah.
Given the opportunity, right? People in those types of positions, do you know I don't know a lot about Gary Glitter, before my time, so I have to.
Yeah, he was a glam rock. Well, David Bowie, he was glam rock dude, and in the 70s, and apparently was raping children all throughout his career. And like you said, this was only between 75 and 80. That was 3 girls under 13, and he gets, it's basically a life sentence for him because he was 70 when he was convicted, but
right, let it go. But nobody knew he was doing this, right? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, no idea.
There's we were talking about it. You can find it on YouTube. There's kind of like.
God, listen to this. Here's a line out of this is the judge that sentenced him. Said the modern equivalent offense of unlawful intercourse with a child under 13 would be equivalent to the rape of a child, but he was not permitted to pass a life sentence because I guess in 1975 it was something less than rape. Wow. Modern guidelines.
I'd love to know the connection between Gary Glitter and Jimmy Savile.
Oh,
because I would assume that there's a very strong one.
Absolutely,
absolutely.
Oh, and by the way they got him back, extradited to the United Kingdom, he was jailed in Vietnam in 2006 for molesting 2 girls aged 11 and 12. So there's another 2 victims.
I mean, listen, you bring up a country like Vietnam, and we're focused in on so many things that obviously happen in the United States, and all the problems we have here. We know like what goes, how sick it is in England. We have not we have barely touched on
no idea
third world countries.
Yeah.
And you're talking about like big countries, like such as
India.
India always pops into my head.
Pakistan, Africa.
Oh yeah.
The Clinton Foundation in Africa.
But the Asian, the poor Asian countries, Philippines, Thailand, Vietnam, where Westerners are literally going on these sex holidays. They've had some undercover, television thing. They've caught some people like doing this, but to the point, and it's not necessarily a part of the culture, but people don't, like they literally just do it just for the money. It's like, hey, it's like I can pimp my own child out, or I can starve to death, kind of thing. And these are the realities that people don't want to face. So we haven't even.
They sell these children now in
a
lot of those countries.
Right. So instead of making donations and trying to think of a better way, you figure like, oh, I'll go help the local economy by raping children, and somehow they probably think like they're helping these people out. I mean, we haven't even gotten anywhere near that yet. And it's
yeah. And here's the other pedophile trait. He, even at that late date, he insisted, and that this is your red flag, that the victims were lying. Okay, so these guys are not rehabilitable, if that's a word, and it just needs to, and we're gonna, we're about out of time, but we're going to be digging deep, and I'm hoping by Thursday a big name from the music industry will get dropped, in this,
Well, in my mind, the names have been dropped. If the bass player from the Rolling Stones was 47 and dating a 13-year-old, and that's documented, that's a name dropped. It's the fact that people aren't caring, and it's like everyone's going to start. Wait a second. Let's, this.
True.
So
you've got a copyrighted song that Ted Still's probably getting royalties for a song about pedophilia.
Yeah, well, if maybe we get in touch with them somehow. What are we gonna do Thursday? Thursday we're gonna be live. Thanksgiving.
Absolutely. We'll
okay.
We'll overcome the.
We'll see what.
You won't have turkey, but I will.
I'll have tofurkey.
Tofurkey, which is.
Am I allowed to plug Tofurkey? Maybe we can have our first sponsor. Well,
yeah, we should.
It's a wonderful product. It's an absolute wonderful product. But it's probably.